I thought we'd do a little bit of hand sewing in this tutorial, and I love hand sewing with felt. I love the way that it feels, and I love that rustic kind of look. And your stitches, particularly when using blanket stitches or cross stitches, really stand out against the felt work. So these are just 5 little hearts that I've made up. They're all slightly different, and I like that look. It makes them a little bit quirky. So on this one, I've just used a few cross stitches and a running stitch. This is the little heart that's been cut out of the centre, so I'm not wasting it. I've used that, it's almost like a butterfly, isn't it, on the front of another heart, and I've used like half a daisy, lazy daisy stitch around here. This one is all blanket stitch, so these I've used a running stitch around the edge, but this one's a blanket stitch, my favourite one, and just cross stitches on one side. That's using the heart from the centre again, so I'm not wasting anything. And this one, I've just added one daisy on the side. Now they all hang up with just a little piece of ribbon that's sewn through from the back, through a button onto the front, and just a little bit of wadding inside, a little bit of toy filler, so they're not too plump. But I think these would be really nice if you put something like lavender inside them, or some potpourri, or some essential oil, so they smell really nice. And you could hang them around coat hangers, or maybe string them all together and have some heart bunting. So this is what you need, and let's get sewing. So I've cut out 2 hearts and then cut the smaller heart from the centre of the heart like that. And you'll find it easier actually to use your template with the heart folded in half. It just makes it easy to make a smooth line so that you can save the heart that's in the centre for another project. Then I'm going to take my glue stick and I'm just going to pop some glue around the back of the heart. And this is going to help to keep the fabric in place while I'm sewing. Oops, that was a big blob. So my fabric scrap goes straight over the back like so. And I'll just trim away that end section here. And then we're going to start to sew. So I'm going to use a blanket stitch around the edge of the heart. So let's start here. So take your needle up through the edge of the fabric, and then we're going to loop the thread around the needle, go back in again around about 1/4 of an inch away, and go back up again just over the edge of the fabric. So I'm going through all layers of fabric and felt. Now this one doesn't look very square, but that's okay because we'll finish that off when we get back to the beginning again. So try and keep your stitches the same size or almost the same size. I don't worry too much about perfection with hand sewing like this because I think it looks quite nice when things are a little bit uneven because it looks more handmade. And just an embroidery thread is fine. If you want a thick stitch, then use all 6 strands of your embroidery thread. This one's actually a crochet thread, but it's a similar kind of thing. And just keep sewing like this all the way around. You will find that every so often your thread gets twisted, particularly if you're using a long piece like this. So just stop every now and again and spin your needle around to untwist it, because otherwise it's going to get a little bit knotty. So now I'm just coming back up to that first stitch. Remember I said it looked a little bit loopy, not very square. Well, I'm going to take my needle in here, and then for the final stitch I'm going to catch hold of that corner of the loop, square it up and push that through to the back. And then I'll just tie off the knot at the back here. Not all the way through because I don't want to see the knot on the right side of the fabric. There. So it looks a little bit messy on the back, but it looks fine on the front, and that's the main thing. So I'm just going to cut another piece of thread because I don't like changing my thread too often. Don't want too many knots on the back. And then we'll do some cross stitch and some lazy daisies. So for a cross stitch, I just come in from the back of my fabric, come out again, go back in, again it's about just over 1/4 of an inch, pull that through, come up to one side, straight across the first stitch. Again, it doesn't matter if these aren't perfectly even, and there's my cross. So I'll have a few crosses on this side. I'm not cutting my thread in between each cross at the back, so I'll just carry on. This is a really quick decoration. And again, don't worry about your stitches being absolutely perfect. They look quite quirky and very modern actually if they are not quite perfect crosses. So I think we'll just have 3 of those there, and I will knot this up at the back, but again I'm not taking the needle all the way through the felt. That's fine. And then Lazy Daisies on the opposite side. So for a daisy, come up into the centre of where you want your petals to be. We'll just have one here, I think. And then I'm going to go back in just at the side of that stitch, so I'm not through the same hole, and come up again the length that you want your daisy to be. But before I pull the needle through, I'm going to wrap the thread around the end of the needle, and then when I pull it through you can see a petal forming. Then go just over the other side of the top of the thread and pull that back through again. Then come up again in the centre and repeat with as many daisies as you like. As many petals as you like. So you could just leave it at 2 and that looks like a little heart shape. Or you could make a 5 petal. I think on this one we're just going to have 3. And again, we'll just finish that off on the back. And then we'll sew, when you're happy with that, so you can do as many flowers, as many daisies as you want to decorate your heart. But I'm just going to leave it as it is here and start to construct the heart. So place the 2 heart pieces right sides together. And we're going to sew all the way around. I'm just going to use a running stitch this time, but leave a gap of around about 2 inches in the straight side so that you can stuff it. So that's probably the best place to start. Now I'm not taking the needle from the back because I don't want to see the knot, so I'm going to take the needle underneath the top of my heart, tuck in the tail, and then we'll sew all the way through. Now for nice even stitches, because your felt is so thick with the 2 layers, if you start going in and out with the needle as if you were sewing a cotton, you probably find the stitches on the back of the heart are smaller or shorter than the stitches on the top. And these stitches actually need to hold the 2 pieces of the heart together. They're not just decorative. So you'll find the stitches more even and a little bit stronger if you take the needle through 1 stitch at a time. It's a bit more time consuming, but it's worth it. We don't want our hearts bursting, do we? So again, we'll just carry on with this all the way around until about here. So that's how we're looking at the moment. I'm not going to take my needle out of my work. I'm just going to open up the side here and just put a little bit of my toy filler inside. And again, don't push this too tightly because you'll distort the shape of the heart. You won't get such a nice effect. So just in small amounts, we'll push this inside into the point, up into this side. And it's at this point that if you wanted to add anything like rose petals or essences or anything like that, pop it in there. I think that's fine. If you need, by the way, to to rethread as you're going around. I did, and I actually rethreaded just here. But again, I've kept the knots on the inside so you don't see them from the back. So my stitch line is still the same all the way around. I'll show you how I did that in just a second. So hold the opening closed. Make sure that all your toy filler is away from your seams because we don't want to get that trapped. And just sew over the opening. Nice idea actually, if you have pinking shears, you could cut the heart out, the outside heart with pinking shears and give a frilly effect around the edge. That'd be quite sweet. Okay, almost there. So there's my final stitch. Now this time I'm going to come back in from the back and open up the two sides of the heart. Oops, come out the way. And I'm going to tie my knot in between the two pieces, so again you don't see it from the front or the back of the heart. Snip that off close to the knot. And that's that bit finished. Then we're going to add our button and our ribbon. So just a little piece of ribbon. Oh, I've got glue everywhere. Loop it around in half like that. And I'm just going to put a little dab of glue to hold that in place. This isn't going to secure it onto the heart permanently, it's just going to hold it in place. That goes there. And then I put this on the back like this as well because partly it makes the back a little bit more interesting if you do see the back of the heart, but also where the little tails are hanging down, I didn't want that interfering with my embroidery on the front. Then I'm going to catch the front of the centre of the V shape here. Take my button. I'm still using the thick embroidery thread, so one stitch will make this secure. So button goes on here. I'll just trim the tail of my thread back to the knot, and then we'll go straight the way through to the ribbon at the back. Do one stitch across there and back through all of the layers again. This time I've come out just underneath the button, and then I can actually knot my thread behind the button. So I'll do that a couple of times. I've just wrapped the thread around the button, take the needle underneath the button out the other side and pull it like so. So again you don't see the ends of the thread. So I think you'll agree, that's very quick. It's loads of fun. It's a great technique as well if you're teaching youngsters how to sew. It's quiet time. You don't need to use the sewing machine. You can be doing this while the TV's on, you know, you're not disturbing anybody else. It's really fun creating different looks. Maybe you like brighter coloured felts, or maybe you want all softer colours, or maybe these are going to be all in white with white thread. I think that would look very, very elegant. But all in all, you've got something that you can give away as a gift, and somebody's going to have such a smile on their face when they open that box and the tissue paper's there, and out they pull this lovely heart, which could be fragrant. And of course, you only give hearts to people that you love, so they're really going to appreciate it. So those are my hanging hearts. Enjoy making yours.